Welcome to the HR Empowerment Podcast, where we will uncover strategies and new insights from HR professionals who discuss up-to-date regulations, best practices, and the most pressing topics like diversity and equity, leadership, dealing with difficult situations, and much more that affect your bottom line and business. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. We are here with Norman Wolfe, and we are talking about human-centric strategies for extraordinary results. And I'm just so giddy about this last conversation that, you were talking to us about, Norman, about, making sure that you're being human-centric and that you're engaging people, and engaged people want to do more things, especially when they feel that they're in control. Yep. And one thing I wanted to say was, we started talking a little about nonprofits too, and I've been on a lot of nonprofit boards, and I feel like if the nonprofit is run right, you get volunteers and employees to do anything for you because they're naturally purpose-driven. What are your thoughts on that, Norman?
Absolutely. As I said, I was chairman of many nonprofits, and I've often thought if we can bring the nonprofit volunteer attitude to business and to the business world, and bring the business world view of producing results and seeing nonprofits in a different way. I won't get into that in this conversation. Put them in the bag, shake them up, and we'd have a much better society overall. But
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that I've watched volunteers voluntarily give of their time and energy, and they're not getting paid. They're doing it because it's something that's meaningful to them. Well, why can't we have people doing what they're doing at work that's meaningful to them, that also meets the needs of the organization? How do you get that alignment? It's such a critical element. But once you get it, I mean, I've seen startups get people working dozens of hours, not that necessarily is healthy, but just giving of their time, constantly working weekends because they believe so strongly in what the organization is doing. It doesn't feel like a drain. It doesn't feel like they're being burnt out. They just feel they're constantly energized. That's what we're trying to create, and it's possible without abusing them at the same time.
Yeah, I've got to share just a little bit there. You're immediately taking me back to my time at public broadcasting and over at PBS. It was all about organizing the employee base to the mission, educate, inspire, entertain. And as people bought into that thought process, the creativity would blossom, but only if you afforded them the chance to be free to create. Once you start to put them in the box, it got tough, Norman.
Yeah, absolutely right. One of the principles, so I mentioned the 7 core principles of the living organization in our last session. One of the things we also recognize is that the role of leader has to change. But this, if I'm leading if I'm as a leader leading an organization that's a living person, then my role is not to plan, organize, lead, and control. That's what you do when you're optimizing a machine. The 4 things we escalated to think about is they have to set the context. And I'll explain that in a second because it gets to your point, JC. They have to develop people because it's the people's energy, the capability and maturity that actually makes things happen. Mm-hmm. They want to build community because it's that sense of belonging that is so critical to people feeling worthy of contributing. And then they want to be of service. And being of service is really providing something to somebody else that's valuable, right? So setting the context, so go from plan, lead, organize, and control to set the context, develop people, build community, and be of service. To set the context, a key element of it is what we call the strategic compass. And the first part of the strategic compass is being very clear about your soulful purpose. Why does this organization exist? Why does this collective exist? You talked about your days at the public broadcasting system. Why do we exist? We exist to, I forgot the exact word, but when I capture that and people say, I want to do that, now you've got them tapped into what's necessary for the organization.
Yeah. So when you're trying to, as a business owner or a manager or HR, you need to be balancing your company goals with humanity. And oh man, I think too many people blame the pandemic and the working from home and remote on like removing the humanity part. And it's like, no, it just made it even clearer that there may not have been some before.
Right. Well, yeah, it's really sad that it has made clear that businesses never treat people humanely. And
Some do,
we're in
some
that
do.
transition.
Generally, I said some
Generally,
do,
yes,
but
I
generally-
shouldn't
Yeah.
speak in absolutes. You're correct.
Yep.
Too many don't. Let's put it that way. More don't than should. But anyway, this balancing of humanity is really critical. And one of the challenges, since the number one responsibility of a leader is to create the outcomes that sustain the growth, they have to stay outcome focused. So the question is, how do I use outcomes and developing people in a complementary way? Because right now they're bifurcated. I'm either business focused or I'm people focused. Well, in the living organization framework, one of the things I recognize is the way you develop people is to have them try to do something they can't do. That sets the catalyst for the challenge that helps them improve. So what if we looked at the goals of the organization as the vehicle to develop the people? So we use a phrase, instead of using people to create outcomes, we use the outcomes as the vehicle to develop people, which increases their capacity to achieve the outcomes. So again, it's a little shift in context, as we like to say. It's a reframing of my mindset. But now I've integrated what has been bifurcated. It's no longer an either-or issue. It's balancing the human and the business together as one journey.
And for everybody listening out there, this isn't just a random thought. This is also substantiated by the entire industry. Harvard Business Review in 2021, this quote's coming from them. Companies that blend corporate targets with a people-first mindset, they see a 56% increase in job performance and a 50% reduction in burnout, fostering a more resilient and productive and loyal workforce. I swear the editors over at Harvard must have got up with you, Norman, before they wrote that, because I think they stole from you on that one. Let me tell you.
It's so true, though. I mean, if we're seeing an increase in job performance, then you're going to hopefully be meeting the company goals if the company set everything else up correctly. And then what I really wanted to focus in on there, JC, was the fact that you mentioned that if they blend corporate targets with people first mindset, that there's a 50% reduction in burnout. And that is so key because so many people are burned out right now. I mean, we have been working, I'll just say that it's pre-pandemic, but I'll just say, for sake of throwing a number out there or a year out there, the past 15 years, people have just been burnt out. It's nothing new. What are your thoughts, Norman?
Well, let's go back to the little example I used about nonprofits, how people, or even startups, how people who are doing what they want to do, right? They are choosing to align themselves with the purpose of the organization. They don't get burned out, right? Because they wake up in the morning and they do what they want to do. We do a little exercise we call have to versus want to. And it's a very simple exercise where people make a list of things on their to-do list. And they say a simple word, I have to do X, I have to do Y, I have to do A, I have to do B. And then we have them feel what that's like. And invariably, they feel heavy, drained, tired, overwhelmed. We take the exact same list of tasks on the to-do list, and we ask them to just say, I want to do X, I want to do Y, I want to do A, I want to do B, and the energy goes up.
Right.
It's a matter of whether they are in a choiceful point, choosing to want to do what has to be done, or whether they're in a have to frame of mind, have to drains us, have to burns us out, have to overwhelms us. So it really is, how do you set that up so people really feel committed? And again, set the context so people know why they're there. Start with why is another way of saying it. And then let them choose to want to do it. Let them choose to go someplace else. That's okay too.
I love it. Thank you for that. And thanks everybody for listening to episode 3 of our 5-part series on Beyond the Metrics, Human-Centric Strategies for Extraordinary Results. In our next episode, we're going to cover navigating change and process improvement. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining the HR Empowerment Podcast, brought to you by Aurora Training Advantage. We hope you've gained new insight and strategies to navigate the HR profession. We look forward to you joining us again on the HR Empowerment Podcast.